Recorded.
Okay, it's being recorded, so let's record this. Supposedly a private session, but we know there's no such thing as privacy in the United States, especially when you log on to their equipment. It's called satellite websites, internet, right? Anyway, what we're going to do, this is going to be entitled, this is titled the correct Sabbath day, the revelation of the correct Sabbath day. And this is part, of course, this will be part 3. Another prophetical revelation of the true Sabbath day, or Shabbat. And then we're going to break it down according to the year that it was first announced by Malak in 1984. He enlightened me on some more mysteries overnight and revelations that he reminded me of that's related to me, my soul. Not only my soul, but this body, this terrestrial body that I'm in today, and how we came about with Shabbat today, during this time, after the crucifixion, of course, the so-called crucifixion over 2,024 years ago now. And speaking of today, let's make a record so that we'll know what today is that we're recording this. That way we can keep up with our time and our days and calculation when we are to observe these days. And that would be, of course, what we'll govern ourselves by, according to what we're going to hear in a few moments. Again, we're going to play that video recording, audio, that was recorded in our temple in 1984, the Temple of Love here in Miami, Florida. And we're going to hear at that moment, during that time of a feast, and according to the commentator who you hear at the beginning of the recording, she said it was during a Feast of Tabernacles, and I can find that quite related to what we're about to share. That would be all in sequence. It would make a lot of sense that he would make that announcement of the true Sabbath and how we're to rotate our Sabbath day every year, begin at the Feast of Tabernacles. Why is that? Because the Feast of Tabernacles is during the time when the Christ was born. Are you hearing what I'm saying? The Feast of Tabernacles signifies the time when the Christ was born, and during the time when the Christ was born, and all of those that are related to his birth, which are known as mother and father, and not only the mother and father of the Christ, but the mother and the father of the Son that was born to us and given of the mighty God, according to Isaiah chapter 9, verse 6. And he's known today by the English appellation transliteration of the Tetragrammaton. He was known, and still is, during that time, as Yahweh ben Yahweh in English. Of course, in Hebrew, it's Yod Hid Wav He, and followed by Beth Nusophi Yod Wav He, which means God, the Son of God. And we know now that he could not have been both. And neither still could he be both. He cannot be both. He cannot be the Father and the Son. It's ridiculous. Anyway, with that said, we know that this recording that we're about to hear in a few moments was recorded during a Feast of Tabernacles, 1984, is when Mount released and announced the true Sabbath day and how it is to be observed, and how every year it is to be rotated to the next day. Again, mentioning day, today, for the sake of the recording, today is known by 2 calendars. First, the solar calendar, which is the 7th day of the 2nd month of our year, 6027. Again, today is known as, even in our day of the week, this is the 2nd day of the week, our week. The 7th day of the second month of our calendar, 6027. And of course, at sundown, we're on the east coast of the United States. At sundown, we begin the 8th day of our second month. Our days are observed from sundown to sundown, from evening to evening. That's how our days begin. Our days begin in the dark, in the evening. And our days end in the dark, in the evening. So that's from evening to evening, sundown to sundown. So again, at sundown would be the 8th day, our 8th day of the second month, 6027. And on the other side of the scale, the scale that balances, this is known as Monday. And it'll be the 15th day of April, the spring month. The 15th day of April. This is tax day to them, to this government. This day is also known as tax day. And this is also biblical. This tax day is known biblically that something happened during a time over 2,000 years ago when the land over in the Middle East, a lot of the residents in the Middle East and Europe were paying taxes. It's not our subject, but I just want to bring that to your attention, that this day is known as tax day. That means all those who are to file taxes in this government of the United States, all those who are to pay taxes or file for taxes, is due today by midnight. Again, April 15th. And the year is known as 2024. But there was a tax that was due, and is related to this revelation, that involved the Hebrew boys under Nebuchadnezzar in the book called Daniel. And let's turn to that. We're going to bring that to your attention so you would see that this is coincidental, and so they think. And although this land is observing taxes as something that relates to commodities or currency, when they add on to a purchase or an employer, wages, salary, adding on taxes on your homes, houses, taxes on vehicles. They're taxing everything. At one point, some states were not taxing food. Now they're even taxing food and vegetables. So go to Daniel, I believe it is, Daniel chapter 11. And let's look at Daniel chapter 11, somewhere around start at verse 18. Actually, 17, where it says, he shall also. I'm going to read that. Daniel chapter 11, verse 17, which says, and I quote, he shall also set his face to enter with the strength of his whole kingdom and upright ones with him, thus shall he do, and he shall give him the daughter of woman, corrupting her, but she shall not stand on his side, neither he for him. You see that? Neither be for him. Verse 18 says, after this shall he turn his face unto the isles. After this shall he turn his face unto the isles, and shall take many. But a prince for his own behalf shall cause the reproach offered by him to cease. Without his own reproach, he shall cause it to turn upon him. Verse 19, then he shall turn his face toward the fork of what? The fork of his own land, the fort of his own land, but he shall, what, stumble? Why would he stumble? He shall stumble and fall and not be found. Imagine that. And verse 20, of course, says, then shall stand up in his estate. See estate there? Then shall stand up in his estate a what? A raise and raises of taxes. A raiser of taxes. Somebody's going to raise taxes. Is that what I'm reading? Then shall stand up in his estate a raiser of taxes. In the glory of the kingdom. Really? Is that what kingdom? In the glory of the kingdom, but within the days, within a few days? But within a few days, he shall be destroyed. You mean after raising taxes? After raising taxes, a raiser of taxes is the glory of the kingdom, but when within a few days, he shall be destroyed, and neither in anger nor in battle. I wonder what that means. That's a mystery. Anyway, with these taxes, this is the only place, by the way, the only place in the Bible, King James Version, where taxes is found. It comes from the Hebrew. It comes from a Hebrew word known as nagas. Go to Strong's H. I believe that's H50. Who's that? H5065. Nagas. H5065. So you can see this taxes has nothing to do with money. How the government is robbing the people of this country with a word known as taxes that has nothing to do with money. Originally. Do you see it? Nagas. Right? H5065. That's what you have? Okay. And that means to press, to drive, oppress. Look, exact. How do you get exact out of taxes? The exact taxes? The exact taxes. How about demanding? How about pressure? This comes from taxes that you know in English. Hebrew word, nagas. How about to press, to drive? How about a taskmaster? How about a taskmaster commanding you to pay taxes, even as a driver, a ruler? How about the oppressor asking you for taxes? How about your Lord asking you for taxes of the house? The exactor of tribute. How about to be hard oppressed? I think it's safe to say that when someone asks you to pay taxes on April 15th, it becomes a hard oppressed. You become hard and oppressed because of it, especially if you owe taxes and you're not getting anything back from your tax return. You become oppressed. Praise God. I just thought I'd bring that to your attention of what today's date is according to their calendar and what the day means to them as a deadline to pay your taxes. It's your deadline to be oppressed. Today is the United States deadline, April 15th, for all people who pay taxes to be oppressed and to be driven out by your taskmaster and to be ruled over them, be ruled over you. Your taskmaster ruled over you today. This is your deadline. And he's demanding that you do that. If not, then you're going to have a visit from the IRS. You're going to be paid a visit from the IRS. Is that what we're reading? Okay. Anyway, let us do this now. Let's go back to our benediction because we're still in the benediction. And with that said, with today's date, now that we have it for recording, we're going to go back. This is part 3 of the true Sabbath day and how we're to observe it. We're going to go back now for a moment, and we're going to hear a recording on YouTube that was recorded in 1984. 1984. And we're going to turn the volume up nice and loud so we can hear. We're going to begin. We're only going to hear about 7 to 8 minutes of it. And we're going nice and loud. You go to the library. It's in the library. And go to the library. See right there in the library. You're going to click on that. You're going to go up to the top of the library, up to the very top of the library. And you should come across, there it is, right there under the, right there. Yeah, let's play that recording. Nice and loud.
His mercy is everlasting, and his truth endures.
Feast of Tabernacles, Preparing for Rulership, Part 1.
All right, let's go to Deuteronomy 16. Try not to hold you too long tonight. I know you have someplace to go. How many of you come to be with me 8 days a night? Hey, darling. How many of you came here to see me? Hey, darling. Then you don't mind if I entertain you for a little while in Yahweh's word. Let's read up a little bit on Deuteronomy 16. Let's start at verse 1. Read. Now that's the only month that Yahweh named. The rest after that are numbered. He named the first month Abib. The other months are 2nd through 12, each with 30 days. Each of Yahweh's months have 30 days. All 12. At the end of 12, you add 5 days, and at the end of 5 days is Abib 1, forever. And then you will notice that when you follow the Gentile and the Jewish calendar, you will see that the Sabbath will fall on the advanced day of the week. Each year, it will change days. This year, since Yahweh used the sun as the timepiece, the correct time with Yahweh is solar time. He made the sun to rule the day, and he told us that the day is from evening to evening. From sundown through sundown is a day. So the moon does not rule the night. The sun rules the day. And the day includes the darkness and the light. White people, being the devil and opposer of Yahweh, set up a lunar calendar, and that's what you're familiar with. Praise Yahweh. They changed the times in the law. Well, I don't want to get off into that tonight, but I'm just giving you a very brief synoptic understanding. So while false Jews worship Saturday, we worship the 7th day. Yahweh blessed the 7th day. not Saturday. Nowhere in your Bible does it teach us to worship Saturday. But Yahweh said in Genesis, worship the seventh day. It's holy. Genesis 2:2. Let's just take a peek. I'm not going to prove solar calendar tonight. One day I'll do that when I'm feeling real good. The reason I'm not doing it now is because this keeps all false teachers and everybody shut up. They cannot teach it because they don't know it. So, as usual, they have to wait on me to teach it before they can run around pretending they know. I tell you about it, you can't get it either. Get on your knees and pray all you want to. Fast all you want to. You're not the servant that Yahweh chose to reveal it to. But you can try. Genesis 2:2. Read. Read on. Praise Yahweh. Now that is a super complex, compounded verse. But just understand that Yahweh blessed the seventh day. Now you ought to know you're not keeping the seventh day with the white man's calendar when he has leap year. He gains a day, huh? And in the 7 years he gained 7 days. So how can you be keeping the seventh day when to get back in tune with the solar calendar? He has changed a day, every 4 years. So in 28 years, he has changed the whole week. Whole week. But every 4 years is leap year. 7 times 4 is 28. It takes the devil 28 years to get back in tune with Yahweh. Then he starts it all over again. So there's no way in the world that you're worshiping the seventh day, blessing the seventh day, following the devil, but it takes him 28 years to get back on track. Then he leads you astray for 28 more years. So this year, Sabbath is on Sunday. Next year, Sabbath will be on Monday. That's 85. 86, it'll be Tuesday. 87, it'll be Wednesday. 88, Thursday. 89, Friday. 90, back to Saturday. But every single day gets equal treatment with Yahweh. So when you keep solar time, then Yahweh has set it in motion how he wants it to be. So that's a little wisdom on the first month, Abib. And the entire Bible is counted according to Yahweh's time. And if you do not count according to the way Yahweh set time in motion, you're out of time. You're out of step with time. That'll keep you under a curse instead of a blessing. But Yahweh said, keeping the Sabbath is a sign between us. Exodus what? Exodus 31. 13. You have to keep the right day to be blessed. Read. Speak to the world. Speak to all the races and the nations. See, this is all about us. If you don't know that you're the children of Israel, you don't know this is talking to you. So the first trick of the devil is to make you think Israel is white people. So by now, how many of you have never read Revelation 3:9? Let me see your hands. You've never read Revelation chapter 3, verse 9. Somebody in the back? Turn to it for her sake. Is anybody? So write down Revelation 3:9, and in there it tells you that the Jew is false and he's a liar. Those who say they're Jews are not, but do lie. I will make them of the synagogue of Satan, which say they are Jews and are not, but do lie. Then he said in Revelation 2:9, he said, I'm going to make them to come and worship before your black feet. So they're liars. So what do you look like following Judaism? Judaism is a white man's invented lie, full of rituals. The white man has Christmas, so the false Jew came up with Hanukkah. No Hanukkah in the Bible. Nowhere, ever. Invented lies. Exodus 31:13. Read. These are also to the children of Israel, saying, wherein my Sabbath you shall keep, for it is a sign between me and you, out of generation, that ye may know I am the Lord God, as well sanctify you. Read. You shall keep the Sabbath therefore, for it is holy unto you. Everyone that devours it shall surely be put to death. For whosoever doeth any work therein, that soul shall be cut off among his people. 6 days they work together, but as the sun is going from heaven, according to the word of God, whosoever doeth any work therein, he shall surely be put to death. Therefore the children of Israel shall keep the Sabbath, so as the Sabbath, how long? How long? How long? Well, forever has not ended. So this law is in effect now. And if you don't turn from your evil, wicked ways of breaking Yahweh's laws and not keeping his Sabbath, you're going to be cut off from among us. And cut off means your head will be cut off, or you'll be thrust through. The devil's going to kill you. Now, I've done my job when I warn you. It's up to you now. Deuteronomy 16.
Okay. All right, well, praise y'all. I praise my all for that. And you also heard now during that recording back in 1984, that was recorded. 1984, you heard it for yourself. And had you not been listening, he uttered a few days, actually uttered a few years. He started with 1984. You can put that together in your mind, because then he said in 1985, well, next year on the Sabbath reserved on a Monday. He said 85, and he went on to all the way to 1990, right back again to Saturday. So with that said, with that reminder, that means in order to keep the Sabbath, you must obey the law. And it's really not that difficult to count the Sabbath days and rotate them year by year if you are erudite. But you also heard him say in that recording that you're not the servant whom Yahweh chose to reveal it. So what you have to do now is find a servant who Yahweh chose to reveal it. And if you're looking for that voice you heard on that recording, you're not going to find him. You're not going to find that voice, because that's God's voice himself. That's the mighty God's voice. That was him on that recording. That is him on the recording. Still is. He's still the mighty God. And if you look in Wikipedia and you go by what Wikipedia says, you would think he's dead. They wrote him off on May 7th, 2007. They wrote him off. Wrote him in Wikipedia, said something like he died. I don't recall seeing in the Bible, anywhere in the Bible, that God died, and neither have I heard in history that God ever died. That would be the same as forever ending. Come from everlasting. He created infinity. Anyway, it's not the subject. But what I want to bring to your attention is the simplicity of the law on how to follow the Sabbath day and its correction. So right now, let's go. We're going to, if you don't have a Bible, we're going to share one with you we have here back of us. It's Psalms chapter 19. Let's go to Psalms chapter 19. I'm going to read verse 7. Psalms chapter 19 and verse 7. Psalm chapter 19. And I'm going to read verse 7. And that says, and I quote, the law, I'm going to read it verbatim. I'm not going to add anything. We're going to read it verbatim. The law of the Lord is perfect, converting the soul. The testimony of the Lord is sure, making wise the simple. That's quote, end quote. So what this verse is telling you is that although the law is perfect, so you too are to become perfect under the law. Once you become perfect under the law, then you'll be able to observe perfection. I mean, you will also convert your soul. This verse is also telling you your soul needs to be converted because right now your soul is not perfect. You're keeping Sabbath days created by mankind and man. You're not keeping the correct Sabbath. The testimony that you're about to hear is of the Lord. It's not from the Lord, it's of the Lord. The testimony. I am of him. That's why I am sure on what I'm about to reveal. And if you follow along with me, with us, then you will be considered wise, and it will become very simple for you to follow along, keep the correct Sabbath day. In that recording, you also heard my say, and by the way, those who don't know, is Aleph Beth. In Hebrew, that means father. It's in your Strong's Concordance on the H1. Strong's Concordance reference H1 of the Old Testament. Aleph Beth, father. My father in that recording said, sun is the timepiece. He chose the sun to be the timepiece. The sun is the timepiece. He also asked the question, how many don't mind being with me 8 days a night? 8 days a night. You should have wondered, why would he say 8 days a night? Unlike 7 days a week or 8 days a day. Why 8 days a night? Well, because you're still sleeping in darkness. And some are going to sleep forever in darkness. That signifies the 8. 8 is infinity, symbolic. That's 2 zeros connected together, standing straight up perpendicular. That's what 8 is. You think it's a numeric. It's symbols. There's 2 symbols connected together, 2 zeros, the Father and the Son connected together as one. I and my Father are one. So now you have, and we follow along with us now. This is the Sabbath day observed. Part 3, the true Sabbath day. The sun is the timepiece. The sun is the timepiece of Yahweh. How did that happen? Well, it started, we have to go back to 1900. We have to go back to the millennium that began in 1900. That's 1900 years after the crucifixion of the Christ. And that will begin the generations of time, the generation of years. 40 years is a generation. That would bring about the generation of time to get to the timepiece and how we got to that today. And we're going to get to it by male factors or men of Judah that were used. We're going to use terrestrial vessels that were used by the mighty God, Mount Og, to bring about time today. That's by the sun. The sun is the timepiece. It was also hidden in the Bible. Now I would like for you to go to Matthew chapter 1 for a moment with me. Matthew chapter 1. That's the first chapter of the New Testament. The first book, Matthew. Matthew chapter 1. All right. Now, in Matthew chapter 1, even beginning at verse 4, it tells you this is the book of the generations of the Christ, the son of David. I'm not going to read that verbatim because there's no such thing as a Jesus or Jesus or Jesus. There's no Hebrew deity that carries the name with the letter J. Even if you want to use Yahshua, that's not the son's name. That's a name, but not thus the name of the son. That's one name that they used throughout the years. He used appellation, Yahshua, the son of David, the son of Abraham. Verse 2 says, Abraham begot Isaac, Isaac begot Jacob or Jacob, and Jacob begot, they have an S instead of an H for Judah and his brethren. And so on, etc. In verse 3, 4, all the way down to verse 7 of Shlomo, even verse 5 of Shlomo, begot Boaz, Jesse begot Daud or David in verse 6, and David begot Shlomo again. See, Shlomo, they have Salmon in verse 5, but it's also Shlomo. Peace. They're telling you that more than one Hebrew bear the name Shlomo. And down to verse 8, you have Yosef. Verse 10, you have Ezekiel. They have for Ezekias. And you also have Ammon. They have Ammon for Amos. And all the way down to verse 16. In verse 16, it says, Jacob begot Yosef, the husband of Mary, of whom was born the Christ. In that verse, whom is born Yahshua, who's called Christ. Now, here's where we're going to start our 1900, our Sabbath day. You didn't know this because it was cryptic. You heard my op said, you're not the one that Yahweh chose to reveal the Sabbath day and to keep up the Sabbath day. So somebody was chosen to do it, and that would be the one who has a measure in his hand, the span. Not only the measure in his hand, but he also has a pair of balances in his hand. Go with me, right? We're going to come back here for a moment, but put something here, put a tab there, and if you follow us with the Bible, go to Revelation chapter 6 for a moment. Go to Revelation chapter 6. And I'm going to read verse 5. Open the third seal. We're going to open the third seal. Revelation chapter 6, verse 5, and I quote, and when he had opened the third seal, I heard the third beast say, come and see. And I beheld, and lo, a black horse, and he that sat on him had a pair of balances in his hand. End quote. Now, this he is the one who is the same as the timepiece. This he is the son who has the timepiece in his hand. The balances are the ears. It's symbolic. That means he's also qualified to measure and count at the same time. And as he returns today out of the third seal, it was promised that he would count and he would measure, but he would measure morally and righteously and not with a scant measure and not with a wicked balance and a deceitful weight. That means whoever this is sitting on this black horse, which is darkness, 8 days a night, 8 days a night, whoever it is sitting on this black horse is in darkness, and the whole world is in darkness until they get his light of time from the balances of the measure to get to the true Sabbath day. Now go to Micah chapter 6 for a moment. That means this must be found in the book of the prophet who is symbolized sitting on a black horse. Now, whoever the prophets are in those 39 books of the Old Testament, whoever that prophet is will be in the book, the same book with the name of who said it and who's going to do it. I'm going to read from verse 9. Micah chapter 6, verse 9. And the voice you heard on the recording is the Lord's voice. And that's where this time measure begins in 1984. Because the Lord's voice crieth into the city. That city is Miami. And the man of wisdom who's here today shall see thy name. So what you must do now with the balances is hear. Hear ye the rod. And who hath appointed it? Which is not a question. See, who is the same voice that crieth in the city? That's Yahweh. I'm going to go down to layman's terms and talk to them on layman's terms because we make sure this recording. You call him Yahweh. We call him Yod, and he's known in Tetragrammaton as Yod Hid. He is wisdom. He's the voice, and he's also wisdom. He's also who in his verse. So wisdom gave the rod something to see, to count with a balance in his hand. The man of wisdom. And that qualifies him to be the one who Yahweh chose to reveal it, as he was saying in the video recording. And verse 10 proves it. As verse 10 says, are there yet the treasures of the wickedness? Are there yet treasures of wickedness in the house of the wicked who add on 28 years to start all over again to count? Add on a leap year every 4 years? Add on a day in a leap year every 4 years, which is a scant measure? That is abominable. In verse 10, that's wickedness. Wickedness is adding on days to a month or a year every 4 years because you want to hide the truth of the Sabbath day. That's abominable. But the question is, should I count them pure with the wicked balances? Count what pure? The correct time. I'm not going to count them pure with wicked balances. I'm going to use a righteous balance and a just weight. Or should I weigh the bag of deceitful weights? No. I'm not going to count them pure with the wicked balances and with the bag of deceitful weights. I will not do that. Why? Because the rich man thereof, see, they're full of violence. They are full of violence. And the inhabitants thereof have spoken lies. And have you thinking that today is Monday, April 15th, 2024. Why? Because their tongue is deceitful in their mouth. Praise Yod. Now go back to Matthew chapter 1 for a moment. Matthew chapter 1. Let's get to the Sabbath day today. Going back to Matthew chapter 1, if you put a mark on that, I pray you did. I'm going to read verse 18. Actually, verse 17, so you can see what happened, how you got here today. Verse 17 says, I quote, so all the generations from Abraham to David are 14 generations. Now you want to make a note of that, 14. 14 generations. That 14 is going to pay, I'm going to write it down myself. 14. 14 generations. And from David until the carrying away into Babylon are 14 generations. There it is again. That means 14 is going to appear in this prophecy twice, back then and today, that's connected to someone that's being symbolized as a David and Abraham. And from the carrying away into Babylon, the United States, and to Christ are 14 generations. That's 3 times. 14 generations. Keep in mind that 14 and 14 is 28. Now, I'm not a mathematician, but I do know that 14 and 14 is 28. So we're not going to use the first 14 because those 14 is the generations from Abraham to David, are 14 generations. We're going to start from David until they carried away into Babylon. 14 generations would be Judah is today in the United States. That's the first 14. And from the carried away into Babylon into the Christ are 14 generations. And we're going to use that generation, those two 14s to come up with 28. You got it? You're going to follow this now. I'm revealing the secret of the Sabbath. So we have two 14s, which is 28. So let's do some math. Now, I'm going to read verse 18 of Matthew chapter 1, verse 18, because you need wise. You need wisdom. Remember the wise? Making wise is simple? Okay. I quote, now, the birth of the Christ was on this wise, when as his mother Mary was espoused to Joseph, before they came together, she was found with child of the Holy Ghost. Verse 19 says, and you'll say for her husband, being a just man and not willing to make her a public example, was minded to put her away privately. But while he thought of these things, behold, the angel of the Lord appeared unto him in a dream, saying, Joseph, thou son of David. See David? The first 14? Fear not to take unto thee Mary thy wife, for that which is conceived in her is of the Holy Ghost. And she shall bring forth a son, and thou shalt call his name, that's not his name, no J. But you can look in your Bible and see it's all caps. That means they substituted the name, euphemized it. For he shall save his people from their sins. Right? And all this was done that it might be fulfilled, which was spoken of by the Lord, by the prophet, saying, from Isaiah chapter 7, verse 14, behold, a virgin shall be with child, and shall bring forth a son, and they shall call his name Emmanuel, which being interpreted is God with us, end quote. Now, let's go to this wise. We have two 14 generations of 28. But I said we're going to start in 1900 to see how we got to the Christ today, just as they did back then, the same as it was today. This means the Christ had parents that here in this prophetic passage, this crypto passage, took on the characters of Joseph and Mary. Joseph and Mary, although that wasn't their names today. We also have in the picture Zachariah and Elizabeth. Now, as coincidental as this may seem, the woman of today who Christ womb, who came out of the womb, who Christ came out of her womb, she did in fact had a biological brother named David. The woman, in other words, let me repeat that. The woman whose womb the Christ came out of today had a biological brother whose name was David. That was the second son of her father, David. And the father, her father, had a sister named Elizabeth, which was actually the mother's aunt. That was his sister-in-law. So the mother of the woman whose womb that the Christ came out had a mother named Elizabeth, and also had a aunt named Mary. So here we have Mary, Elizabeth, and David in this generation. This is the truth. We had, again, the woman had a mother named Elizabeth, an aunt named Mary, and a brother named David, all from the same family. Now, on the father's side, the father took on the role of Joseph. And at the time, Joseph was married to another woman. And it being that he impregnated Mary again with a child, a son, he did not want to make her a public example on the island where they were living, called Bahama Islands. So when they discovered that she was pregnant, they agreed that she should come to the United States to get away from the family on the island of the Bahamas, so that it wouldn't be so talk around the island that the woman Mary is pregnant again, or pregnant for Joseph, who's married. That's why the word espouse came up in the scripture. She wasn't his spouse. She was his espouse, which is like an extra spouse, espouse, because he already had a wife and children. This is a testimony. This is a testimony that is sure. Psalm chapter 19, verse 7, making wise and simple. So here we are again today, a repeat of history, that we have the mother figure of Mary, the mother of the Christ, and we have the father figure of the Christ that's going around as Joseph, who was a spouse to Mary. So he had another wife. And they left town. In fact, they left the country of Ireland and came to the United States. That's where the child was born, according to Matthew chapter 1 and verse 23. Now, let's do this, because remember, my said the sun, he made the sun his timepiece. It's the timepiece. And we also have 14, don't we? We wrote down 14 generations times 2, 28. Let's do this now, because that means that we have John the Baptist in the picture too. It being that John the Baptist played a role of Abraham or Isaac or Jacob, because Judah come from Jacob, and Jacob come from Isaac, and Isaac come from Abraham. So we did it with generations, aren't we? Right. So let's do this. Let's go to the voice that we heard a few moments ago. Let's go to his people, the family he chose to come from and come out of. He came out of a pearl. He came out of the womb of a pearl on October 27th, according to the calendar. October 27th, 1935. And at birth, they named him after his father, or so they thought was his father. In other words, it's a repeat of history, although this time it looks like the father got his way. Remember, back in the days, over 2,050 years ago, Zechariah was going to name his son Zechariah. But the angel said, or actually the angel came to Elizabeth and said, no way. You're going to name that son of yours Yohanan. And Mary, or actually Elizabeth, wanted to put up an argument with the angel. Said, no, my husband wants to name him after himself, Zechariah. Angel said, oh, no. You're going to name him Yohanan. And so be it. And she did. Elizabeth obeyed the angel's voice. And back then, when Zechariah gave birth to his first son, when Elizabeth gave birth to Zechariah's first son, Elizabeth named him Yohanan. Let's go to Luke for a moment. Luke chapter 1. Let's see where that is. Let's prove that. Luke chapter 1. And I'm going to start at verse 7. Luke chapter 1, verse 7. And I quote, and they had no child. Why? Because that Elizabeth was barren, and they both were now well stricken in years, sort of like Abraham and Sarah. Sarah was barren, and Sarah had no child. So the same with Isaac and Rebekah. Rebekah was barren. And here we are now, Elizabeth was barren. And they both were now well stricken in years. And it came to pass in verse 8 that while he executed the priest's office before God in the order of his course, according to the custom of the priest's office, his lot was to burn incense when he went into the temple of the Lord. Verse 10, and the whole multitude of the people were praying without at the time of incense. And verse 11, and there appeared unto him an angel of the Lord standing on the right side of the altar of incense. Verse 12, and when Zechariah, they have the S here, but when Zechariah saw him, he was troubled, and fear fell upon him. But the angel in verse 13 said to him, fear not, Zechariah, for the prayer is heard, thy prayer is heard, and thy wife Elizabeth shall bear thee a son, and thou shalt call his name John. So look who got the order. Zechariah himself. The first order. And thou shalt have a joy and gladness. Thou shalt have joy and gladness after he is born, and many shall rejoice at his birth. For he shall be great in the sight of the Lord, and shall drink neither wine nor strong drink, and he shall be filled with the Holy Ghost, even from his mother's womb. And many of the children of Israel shall be turned to the Lord their God. In verse 17, and he shall go before him in the spirit and power of Elijah, to turn the hearts of the fathers to the children, and the disobedient to the wisdom of the just, and to make ready a people prepared for the Lord. And Zechariah said to the angel, could you imagine speaking back to the angel? Whereby should I know this? For I am an old man, and my wife well stricken in years. Verse 19, the angel answering said unto him, I am Gabriel, that stand in the presence of God, and am sent to speak unto thee, and to show thee these glad tidings. And behold, thou shalt be dumb, and not able to speak, until the day that these things shall be performed, because thou believest not my words, which shall be fulfilled in their season. Verse 21, and the people waited for Zechariah and marveled, and he tarried so long in the temple. What's keeping him so long? Verse 22, and when he came out, he could not speak unto them, not a word. Could you imagine? And they perceived that he had seen a vision in the temple, for he beckoned unto them and remained speechless. And it came to pass that as soon as the days of administration were accomplished, he departed to his own house. As the days of his administration were accomplished, he departed and went to his own house. Now, in verse 24, after those days, his wife Elizabeth conceived. She conceived and hid herself 5 months of embarrassment, I would imagine, being well stricken in age. She hid herself for 5 months, saying, thus hath the Lord dealt with me in the days wherein he looked on me, and take away my reproach among men. And in the 6th month, the angel Gabriel was sent from God unto a city of Galilee named Nazareth, to a virgin espoused to a man whose name was Joseph. Here we are, right back again. Of the house of David. And the virgin's name was Mary. Okay, hold on now for a moment. We using the calendar, we're going to start with 1990. I'm just making a note for it. We're not going to go to it right now. But I'm looking here that an angel Gabriel came to a man in the city of Galilee. The Gabriel was sent to the city of Galilee, where a virgin was espoused to a man named Joseph. The house of David, all in the same island. And the virgin's name was Mary. In verse 28, and the angel came unto her. The angel came in unto her and said, Hail, shalom, hey, how you doing? Thou that art favored, highly favored. The Lord is with thee. What? Yes, blessed art thou among women. And when she saw him, she was troubled at his saying, and cast in her mind what manner of salutation this should be. And the angel said to her, Fear not, Mary, for thou hast found favor with God. And behold, thou shalt conceive in thy womb and bring forth a son, and shall call his name Yahshua, or whatever name they call him. You look at another euphemism. He shall be great and shall be called the Son of the Highest. Could you imagine? The Son of the Highest. I thought that should have been Yohanan to be the Son of the Highest. But here is a man, a child coming from Mary, that's going to be called the Son of the Highest. And the Lord God shall give unto him the throne of his father David. And he shall reign over the house of Jacob forever, forever, forever. And we heard the video, forever hadn't gotten here yet. And of his kingdom there shall be no end. Then said Mary unto the angel, How shall this be? Seeing I don't know no man. I have no man. Seeing I know not a man. Oh, yeah, you did. And the angel answered and said to her, The Holy Ghost shall come upon thee. Are you seeing this? The Holy Ghost shall come upon thee, and the power of the highest shall overshadow thee. And therefore also the holy thing which shall be born of thee shall be called the Son of God. And that happened in 1953. When she had no man, and some came inside her womb, impregnated her, the Holy Ghost. Verse 36, and behold, I bear witness. See, our cousin Elizabeth, she has also conceived a son in her old age. And this is the 6th month with her, who was called barren. For with God, nothing shall be impossible. Nothing. And Mary said, Behold, the handmaid of the Lord, be it unto me according to thy word. And the angel departed from her. He left. So Mary arose in those days and went into the hill country, even on Blue Hill Road, and haste into a city of Judah over the United States, and entered into the house of Zechariah. Even back then, entered into the house of Zechariah, as she did today, and saluted Elizabeth. And it came to pass that when Elizabeth heard the salutation of Mary, the babe leaped in her womb. And Elizabeth was filled with the Holy Ghost. Did you see that? You see that? The babe leaped in her womb. The babe leaped in her womb. And at this moment became the first leap year. This will leap come in. And she spake out with a loud voice in verse 42 and said, Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb. This is the first leap year of the 14th generation. The first leap year, there's going to be 2. There's going to be 2 leap years in this verse, in this chapter. Not the verse, this chapter. This is Luke chapter 1. Here's verse 41 with the first leap. I mean, this is Mary who gave news to Elizabeth, and the babe in Elizabeth's womb leaped. When she spake out, I mean, the babe in Elizabeth's womb gave up the leap. He's not going to have a leap year when he come out. In other words, the year he came out, 1935, I guarantee it's not going to be a leap year. And either is it going to be a leap year when Mary's son is born. It's going to leap over 2 more years to another leap year. There's two leaps. Two leaps. The leap of the Son and the leap of the Father, or the leap of the Father and Son, if you want that order. That means both years that the Father and the Son came out during this generation will not be leap years. Those two leap years will go into another time period to bring on the two generations of 28 years of leap years. This also means that in verse 42, and she spake out with a loud voice and said, Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb. And whence is this to be? And that the mother of my Lord should come to me. I mean, why are you telling me you're pregnant and wow, and here I am, I'm pregnant, and the babe in my womb, I can feel it kicked and leaped, and you telling me you're going to have one too? In verse 44, for lo, as soon as the voice of thy salutation sounded in mine ears, the babe leaped in my womb for joy. How's that? How about that? And blessed is she that believed, for there shall be a performance of those things which were told her from the Lord. How about that? Now we're dealing with two leaps. Go to the Strong Concordance for a moment. The first leap started in, let's go to 1900 for a moment. All right? The first leap, you in the calendar? Go to the year 1900. You have it? Okay. Now, what you're going to do is pay attention to this calendar, which is the Gregorian calendar, and you're going to focus on January 1st. Here are the two dates you're going to focus on. You're going to focus on January 1st. And if you have the correct calendar, you should have Monday. Right? And you're going to also focus on the last day in February to see if it's either going to be 28 or 29. Of course, if it's 28, it's not a leap year. But if it's 29, it's a leap year. And you're going to find out, and you're going to make note of what day of the week that leap year, that 29th of February will fall on, right? So that's going to be the second. You're going to look for three things. You're going to look for the first day of the year, Monday, January. Or it may not be a Monday, but you're going to look for the first day of that year, January 1st. You're going to go to February and see if they have a 29 in that year. Then you're going to go to the last month, the last day of the month, to see what day that falls on. And this calendar says December 31st fell on a Monday. So the first day of the year was on a Monday, January 1st, 1900. 1900. And the last day of the year of 1900 was a Monday. But there was no leap year. Right? Now, going through history, we're going to go back now to this time, this generation. And when you check your records, you're going to find out that Hulon Mitchell Sr., also known biblically and spiritually as Zechariah, right? Or Yohanan spiritually for the day. He came out of the womb in the year 1914. So go to 1914. Yeah, all you have to do is really just type in 1914 or 14 up to 900. Right? 1914. And as you should see, if you have the right calendar, the first day of January was on a Thursday. No leap year because Saturday it's February 28th. But the last day of that year is also a Thursday. So it started with a Thursday, ends with a Thursday. So it's December, right? So this couldn't have been the one that leaped, the wife leaped in her womb because there's no leap year. So we got to go to both the husband and the wife, right? Now, the mother, Huron Mitchell, was born in 1914, but the mother of the mighty God, or the womb she chose to come out of, was Pearl Leatherman. She came out of a womb in the year 1917. So go to that. Right? 1917. You got it? Now, is it also a coincidence that the year 1917, right? And the year 1900 is the same calendar? Is that a Monday? And the last day in December is also a Monday? With no leap year. Okay, so that means, which I read in Luke chapter 1, the babe that leaped in her womb leaped over to Mary's womb. So that babe could become the Son of God and the timepiece for the Shabbat. Right? Let's prove. Let's see. Go to, do you have H? Go to concordance and go to H 5927. H 5927. Philippe. Now, you should come across the Hebrew word known as Allah, Elah. See, like a law? Elah. It's pronounced Elah. Ayin Lamed He, Elah. And this word means to climb and ascend, to go up. Also, it means to meet. So, someone's going to meet someone during this generation. To spring up, somebody could be spring up, just leap, spring up, to come up. You see it? To be superior to. See it? To be superior to cause to ascend, to cause to ascend and offer, to cause to offer, to be carried away, to be taken up into, and to be offered, and to lift oneself. So this leap, L-E-A-P, this leap is for October 27, 1935, or for 1914, or for 1917, because this leap is not past tense. This leap is present tense. It's leap. Right? It's leap. In Luke chapter 1, it said leaped, which is past tense. Is that right? Okay. So now we have to go stay your course, go to G 4640. All we do is add an ED to make it past tense, because this is what happened in the New Testament. In Luke, it leaped. There was a leaped. Past tense, right? Okay, you're going to find this in the G 4640. And the only thing they have here in Greek means to skip. To skip. To leap, to skip. And to jump. That means that, look, it even says as the quickening of a fetus. You see it here in the Strong's definitions, in parentheses, right? Sympathetically, as quickening of a fetus, a leap, and even for joy. So that means that when this child was born from Mary's womb, the one who was born from Elizabeth's womb leaped for joy, while he was leaping in Elizabeth's womb. He was leaping for joy of the one to be coming out of Mary's womb. Do you see that? It's simple. Make it wise and simple. That's why he leaped. He leaped for joy because he knew that he was bringing forth a son the Son of God with him so they can meet during this generation. Got it? Okay, now let's do this. That means before 1914, there must have been a leap year. Right? They had to be. Go just for the sake of it, go to 1912. Go back to the calendar, go to 1912. See if that was a leap year. But that's not where the time is going to start. I believe that's going to be a leap year. But that's where a particular, see, no one was around of those that we mentioned. I mean, Zechariah or Johanan wasn't around yet. He didn't come out to 1914. That's why I said make another 14. Pearl wasn't around yet. And neither was Joseph and Mary of the Christ wasn't around yet. We're going to get to those two in a moment. But first, I'll bring it to your attention that there was no one here in 1912, although when you look at 1912, it also says it started on a Monday, didn't it? But do you see that in February it was a leap year? And the last day of that year was also on Tuesday? Right? Okay, now we're done with Yosef and actually Johanan and Pearl. Right? If you look at, let's do this. If we look at the calendars, you have 28 years that you got to look for now with Joseph and Mary to get to the Sabbath day today. This day, of course, I mentioned, according to the calendar, is April 15th, 2024. This year, our 6027 solar year, we're recognizing the Shabbat day from sundown Saturday to sundown Sunday. So how we come about that is how. Let's go to Yosef. Let's go to the spiritual one who the angel came to as Yosef, who was espoused to Mary in the Bahamas, and find out what year he came out of his womb. I happen to know. We're only going to deal with the years. And that year would be 1928. So let's go to that. Go to your calendar. Right? Now that we know why the babe leaped in Elizabeth's womb, leaping because the son of God was going to be born from Mary, and he was already leaping with joy. So now you have 1928. Okay. So in 1928, the first day of the year was on a Sunday. Is that what you have? And the last day was a Monday. And if I'm not mistaken, you should have a February 29 on a Wednesday. Is that right? Okay. So this is where the time began. How it began? Remember, the father of Abraham, father of Isaac, the father of Jacob, the son of generations. So here's where the first generation starts in 1928. And that would be the year the spiritual Joseph came out of the womb. Joseph. Now go to 1956. Now we got to count 28 years. Now, if we are correct, that means 28 years after this will be the same calendar. Let's check and see. That'll be 1956. Same calendar. Is that right? That's 28 years. And I have to start over again because the first 28 years that they added a day for 7 years, 7 days. At the same time, why not 1954? Go back to 1954 when the Christ came out of the womb. Do this time. It's not leap year. You have it? It's not leap year. That means you don't come to leap year until 1956. That's the first 28 years from 1928. All right? Now, we heard the recording a few moments ago of my in the temple back in what year? 1984. Right? And that was when he said and announced to those that were there that Yahweh chose his son to become the timepiece. Is that right? So I mean, from 1984, from that moment up to how we got it today in 2024 should be how we keep the Sabbath. Because during that Sabbath, during that time, he said the Sabbath on Sunday. Is that right? Okay, so now let's go to type in, get rid of 56 and put in 84. And if we are correct, that should be the exact calendar 28 years later. 1984. 28 years later, the same calendar as a leap year. Is that right? We got it. Now, from this moment, we're going back to recording. He said that Shabbat would be recognized that year on a Sunday. If you look at the calendar, it says March 11th, a Sunday. Sundown Saturday, sundown Sunday. Look at your calendar. Now, then he went on to say, next year, Monday, 1985. Next year after that, Tuesday, 1986. Wednesday, 1987. 1988, a Thursday. 1989, Friday. And 1990, back to Saturday. Right? Okay. Then he also said we got to count that 28 years again because every 28 years, they added on 7 days and stole it. We got to start all over again. That's why we cannot keep the calendar of the devil who keep changing it and leaping over from one womb to the next womb. Is that right? Right. So, with that said, we got to count 28 years from 1984. Now click on, go to 2012. 2012. Do your math. That takes us to the next 28 years. You should have the same calendar. The same calendar. The same calendar. 2012. You have it? The same calendar. The same calendar. This is Joseph. So I mean, we went from 1984 and 28 years where he made the announcement. Actually, we went from 1928 to 1956. 1956 to 1984 when Ma'ab made the announcement. And at that time, I was in the temple. I was with him in the temple, 1984. Then we went from 1984, here we are now at 2012. That's 28 years times 3 times. From 1984, from 1956 to 1984 to 2028. 2012. 3 times. 1928, 1956, 1984, took us to 2012. And that's dealing with Joseph. That's Joseph's. That's his generations. You got it? Okay, now, the cycle after 2012 started at 2016. You got to keep that in mind. The cycle at 2012, that was the end of that 28 years. The next leap year would have been 2016. And that's where the next cycle began. We got it? for the next 7 days to start that they stole. Now that we deal with Joseph, let's go to Mary. Go back to the calendar and go back to 19. Mary, this spiritual Mary, came out of the womb in 1932. Remember, there was no leap years with Hulan Mitchell Sr. and Pearl Leatherman Mitchell. There were no leap years. So now we go to 1932. And I'm willing to bet you that probably was a leap year. This is when Dorothy came out. This is Mary. They leaped it over to them. It leaped from Elizabeth to Mary. It leaped from Hulan to Joseph. Huh? Okay. So look what we're dealing with. 1932. Okay. Now we got to go 28 years. We got to go 28 years. And remember, we're trying to get to how we got to the Sabbath day today on sundown Saturday, sundown Sunday in 2024. Even from 1984, where Sabbath was on a Sunday. Huh? Okay, now we have 1932. Now we got to go 28 years. And I believe, if my math is correct, that's going to be 1960. So go to 1960. And see if we do not have the same exact calendar in 1960. The same calendar 28 years later. We're dealing with Mary now, also known as Dorothy, spiritual Mary. Also had an aunt named Mary, and an aunt named Elizabeth, a mother named Elizabeth. Now we have to get to another 28 years from 1960. And I believe that's going to take us to 1988. Let's go. Let's see, 1988. 1988, 28 years from 1960. And tell me that's not the same calendar. The same calendar. January 1st on a Friday, February 29th on a Monday, and December 31st on a Saturday. Is that right? 28 years. Now, I mentioned when we got to Yosef, right? We got to Yosef at 2012. Stopped at 2012 from 1928. 2012. So now that means now the womb got to carry on at least to 2016 because the womb is what brought the son out, not the man. He came through the womb, not the man. So now we got to see if Dorothy going to take us to 2016 when the son became the timepiece. Right? So we got to add 28 years to what? To 1988. And I believe, if your math is correct, that's going to take us to 2016. 2016. And that would be the same calendar. The same calendar. That the first day of the year, Friday, 2016. Leap year, February 29. Not to forget to mention that the woman came out of the womb on February 3rd, 1932. February 3rd, 1932. And the last day of that year is a Saturday, December 31st. The same calendar, 28 years, 3 generations. That's Mary. So now let's go back to the count. We're going to pick up from 1990. 1990. All right. And that took us from sundown Friday to sundown Saturday. And then 1991, back from sundown Saturday to sundown Sunday. And 1992 was a leap year. 1992 took it from sundown Sunday to sundown Monday, which was the 9th of March. And 1993 from sundown Monday to sundown Tuesday, which was the 9th of March. And 1994, right, from Tuesday to Wednesday, on the 9th of March. And in 1995, it took us from sundown Wednesday to sundown Thursday to Shabbat, recognized rotating, which was the 9th of March. However, in 1996, we found a leap year. We found leap year. And in 1996, the Shabbat that year was observed from sundown Thursday to sundown Friday, which was March the 8th. We lost a day because they added a day. So that was from Thursday to Friday. And that means from 1997, it would have went from sundown Friday to sundown Saturday. However, what we want to do is come up with Mary, when the third generation of 28 came out, which is 2016. However, let's go back one from 1997 and go 1996. Right? Now remember, I just said 1996, the Shabbat was being observed from sundown Thursday to sundown Friday. Go to your calendar, go to 1996. Are you still there? Go to 1996 on your calendar. You there? Do you see the first day of that year was a Monday? And the last day of that year, December, was also on a Tuesday? Do you see that 1996 was a leap year that fell on Thursday? Right? Okay, and what's today's date? April the 15th, right? Okay, so stay on 1996 calendar and go to April and see if April 15th is fall on a Monday. It does. Okay, go to 2024 now. Just take out 1996 and type in 2024. And this time you should go to April 15th and you should see it highlighted. It's the same calendar. January 1st on a Monday, February 29th on a Thursday, leap year. Last day of December in 2024 is looking forward for Tuesday. Same calendar. So how come, and how did we get to, if it's since the same calendar, how come in 1996, the Shabbat fell on from sundown Thursday to Friday? But here we are with the same calendar, and we say it's from sundown Saturday to sundown Sunday. How is that? The law of the Lord is perfect. The law of the law is perfect. Convert the soul. This testimony of the Lord is sure, making wise the simple. With that said, be ye therefore perfect, even as your Father which is in heaven is perfect. You must become perfect. So the question now is, how come we have two calendars that are identical? 28 years apart. Did I mention that from 1996 to 2024 is 28 years, another cycle of 7 days? And yet, in 1996, the Shabbat was recognized and observed from sundown Thursday to sundown Friday, which was on the 8th of March. However, in 2024, our Shabbat is now, with calculation, from sundown Saturday to sundown Sunday, which was the 9th of March, going to the 10th. Why is that? What happened? Why is not on sundown Friday to sundown or Saturday? I mean, why? How did it get from sundown Thursday to Friday to now Saturday to Sunday? That's 2 days. A 2-day difference. Well, here's how, and don't ever forget it. And that's with this said, you know you're on the right Sabbath. You're keeping the right Sabbath because you don't want to be cut off. Don't forget, the simplicity is in 2016, the leap years, another cycle started. 2016 was leap year. That's an extra day. And 4 years after that, which was 2020, another leap year. That's 2 days. So when you get to 2024, you have 2 extra days that they already stole that you're going to add on to 2024. That means from sundown Friday to sundown Saturday, 1 day, 2020. That's for 2020, right? 2016. 2016, extra day, 2016. Then we come to 2020 and we got extra day. And if you do your calculation from 2020 and you see how we rotated, you'll see we came right back to sundown Saturday to sundown Sunday, March 9th to March 10th. That makes a perfect 7-day cycle that they tried to take from 1996. You got it? That's how we came about our Shabbat today, being observed from sundown Saturday, again, from sundown Saturday to sundown Sunday, 6,027. Now, when you go back now, as we close, again, if we used Hunan Senior's days or his generation of time, here's what you would have come up with. And these years I'm about to call is the exact calendar, 28-year intervals, leap years. Actually 28 total years, 7 leap years times 4. That would be from the first year he came out of his womb, 1914. You have 1914, 1942, 1970, 1978, 28 years apart. And he ascended, he was taken in 2001. He was taken in 2001, which is the year when Yahweh ben Yahweh came out of prison in 2001, in September 26. And 2001 is the same year when Hulan Mitchell Sr. again was taken in February, actually on the date of his wife's birth date. I believe that was like February 17th or something like that, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, you can look it up now. I mean, somewhere in February. But you look up the records of them two, you'll find out that Hulan Mitchell Sr., but they want to call died on the exact day of her birth, date of her birth. And let's see if I can get the exact date, just in case you look it up. You'll see the exact date. I'll get you the exact date. It says that February 20th, to be exact. February 20th, 2001 is when he died, so-called died. February 2001, 2001, February 20, 2001 is when Senior died. And Pearl Mitchell Leatherman was born on February 20th, 1917. So that's not a coincidence. That was planned that way. It was planned that way. So with that said, now you know, and you continue rotation, I just had to come on and I was told to share with you and reveal why we recognize from sundown Saturday to sundown Sunday as a Shabbat for this year, and how we're going to rotate next year, and how we've been rotating since 2016. Why? Because the sun became the timepiece after the 28th year of that cycle from the woman, not the man. Got it? If you have any questions or comments, again, you may address them to our attention through our post office box. And that would be the Celestial Lodge. Celestial Lodge of Miami. And that's P.O. Box 472072. 472072, P.O. Box And that would be Miami of Florida. Miami of Florida, 33247. With that said, I can't greet you with Shabbat Shalom, not until another 5 days at sundown. But I will say Toda for joining us. And we certainly appreciate you giving us a moment of your time today. And use this as a study tool to keep up. So you don't be cut off, your soul will be cut off from among your people, Judah. This testimony is for Judah. All of the nations mean absolutely nothing to me. And you can confirm that in your book called Isaiah, your Bible, Isaiah chapter 40 and verse 17. 40, 17. They mean absolutely nothing. No other nations but Judah. But that says, Shalom Aleichem.